One of our problems this year is we didn't meet our revenue estimate last year, so we started out in the hole, and we'll start out in the hole again this year if that's the case. So this 2-week period we're having is to try to basically fill what we've determined is a $1 billion hole, and I'll take a second to kind of show you where that's coming from. We're off just since last April. When we left last April and passed a budget, we immediately began to lose ground on that budget. And every month just about, and you can see last year's budget right. This is last year's budget revenues, and this is this year. The yellow line is this year. So you can see we've been under every year. Well, our budget was based on this figure right here. So we've been under ever since we started. The red graph just basically is the accumulating shortfall in this year's budget. I'm talking about the one we're in right now, the one that ends this coming June. Every month we missed where we should have been according to the budget. Every month we missed it, accumulated this shortfall. And as you remember, last July, the governor announced a list of additional cuts where he withheld, I believe it was 5% from every department. They cut K-12 education and suggested a furlough of 3 days, and then he furloughed all state employees 3 days, which came on top of any furloughs that the state agencies were already doing, to try to meet where we were right then, which was somewhere right here. Well, we've continued to lose ground every month. Then when the governor prepared his budget for next year and his amended budget to finish this year, we were right about here. This is what he based it on. And he expected, in his budget, he expected us to not miss it another month. He expected the rest of the year for us to hit every one of these marks, or if we were under 1 month, we'd be over the next. And that was their expectation. That's what the economists told him. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, the very first month, which was January, right here, which is actually the sales from December. That's our Christmas month. One of the highest months. As you can tell, last year it was one of the highest months we had. Well, it didn't happen. Our sales were basically about the same as last year. Overall, because of the income tax, we lost another $130-something million off of our revenue for that month over the less than the year before. So as we stand here today, we're at a $1.6 billion deficit from the budget we passed last April, and that's what's driving a lot of this frantic activity right now, because if we missed it here, then we've got to make up the difference in the 10 budget. The governor's plan is, as I said, we don't have any reserves left, so the governor's plan is to move some of the stimulus funds that we had plugged in the next budget, move it back into this budget to meet that deficit so we can balance at the end of June. That does two things. Of course, when you take money out of one pot and put it in the other pot, you just left a hole. So we've got a hole in the 11 budget. And on top of that, as I said before, when you miss at the end of June, if you didn't hit your revenue level, then you start out the next year in a hole, because each budget's built on where the last one ended up. So it's a double whammy. So if he moves, we've kind of settled on a figure now. We think, and this is fairly optimistic, we think by the end of the year we'll only be off $300 million more. And so we're going to find that $300 million probably by, and he hadn't announced this, but that's what we expected to announce. So we're going to find that $300 million by moving stimulus funds, and these are not stimulus funds that are directed at schools or higher ed. These are stimulus funds that we were given by the federal government for budget stabilization. It's a different pot of money. So we're going to balance by using those funds. At the same time, then that makes our 2011 budget even more problematical. And that's what we're struggling with right now. Is we've got a $600 million piece of that. There's a $300-something million hospital tax that may not pass, that he has counted in his budget. So we're looking at about a $1 billion hole that we've got to figure out how to fill over the next week or two, and then try to write a budget that does that. You can see the rest of the black line, that's the rest of this year. The thing that concerns me, and the economists, they kind of have revised their numbers, and they're actually fairly optimistic. What bothers me is the barometer of where we've been is a better barometer lately than of where we're going. if you look at these three, particularly these 3 months, February is a very low month because there's only 28 days in it, so it's a low month historically anyway. When you look at these figures at the end right here, that's pretty ambitious when you look at how low these yellow lines are right here. If you just see that one line across there, so I'm really concerned that 300 million may not be a good figure, but we've got to start somewhere. We've got to keep going. So having said all that, I think that's probably as much as it needs.